Do you ever wonder what really goes on behind closed doors of picture-perfect families? The smiles, the unity, sometimes they're nothing but a mask hiding unspeakable secrets. Today, we delve into a story that will leave you breathless, a tale of love, betrayal, and a darkness that no one saw coming. It all begins in a quiet, affluent neighborhood. The Reed family seemed to have it all: a loving father, a stepmother who brought grace to every room, a teenage son eager to please, and a loyal maid who kept the household running like clockwork. But as with any family, cracks began to show. Little arguments here and there, whispered secrets, tensions that couldn't be ignored. And when a series of mysterious events began to unfold, each one more disturbing than the last, the perfect image started to shatter. Let's begin with the boy, young Ethan. Shy, intelligent, eager for his father's approval yet often overlooked. His world turned upside down when his new stepmother, Rebecca, came into the picture, a woman who was charming yet held an unsettling air of mystery. Ethan had always felt a bit out of place in his own family, but when Rebecca entered their lives, he was filled with both curiosity and suspicion. Who was this woman who seemed to enchant everyone, including his father? Then there was his father, Robert, a successful businessman, stern but loving. He believed that Rebecca could bring warmth and stability to the family. But Robert was wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. As the weeks passed, Ethan began to notice small changes in his father's behavior. Robert seemed more distracted, caught up in conversations with Rebecca that always ended in hushed tones and sidelong glances. It made Ethan uneasy. What were they hiding? And then there was Mary, the family maid, who had been with them for years. She was a steady presence, always there with a kind word or a listening ear. But even Mary sensed something was amiss. The tension in the house was palpable, and she had seen too many things she wasn't meant to. One evening, while cleaning the study, Mary stumbled upon a series of documents that made her heart race. A stack of letters exchanged between Robert and a mysterious woman named Lila. The letters hinted at a past that Robert had tried desperately to forget, a past that could unravel everything. Curiosity piqued, Mary decided to investigate. She secretly followed Robert and Rebecca around the neighborhood, watching as they met in secluded spots. The whispers of their conversations made her blood run cold. They spoke of money, deceit, and a plan that seemed to hang over their heads like a dark cloud. As the story unfolds, secrets that had been buried deep in their past began to surface, intertwining the lives of everyone in that house in ways no one could predict. Meanwhile, Ethan was growing more suspicious of Rebecca. She seemed to play the doting stepmother when Robert was around, but transformed into a different person when he was not. She was sharp-tongued and dismissive, especially when it came to Ethan's interests or his needs. One day, while exploring the attic, Ethan discovered an old family album that belonged to Rebecca. The photos inside were unsettling. Images of her with different families over the years, each marked by tragedy or disarray. A chill ran down his spine as he recognized a pattern. He decided to confront her, gathering all his courage. When he brought up the album, Rebecca's demeanor changed completely. The warmth melted away, replaced by an icy glare that sent a shiver through Ethan. "You shouldn't go digging into things that don't concern you, Ethan," she warned, her voice low and menacing. Feeling trapped and confused, Ethan turned to Mary, his only ally in this increasingly hostile environment. He confided in her about the letters he had found and the strange behavior of Rebecca. Mary, too, was alarmed. "We need to keep our eyes open, Ethan," she urged. "There's something dark going on in this house, and we must protect ourselves." Days turned into weeks, and the tension reached a breaking point. One night, during a family dinner, an argument erupted between Robert and Rebecca. Voices were raised, accusations were thrown, And in the heat of the moment, Rebecca revealed a truth that would change everything. You see, Rebecca had a secret of her own, one that she had been concealing for years. "You think you can keep everything from me, Robert?" she shouted, her eyes blazing. "I know about Lila. I know what you did." The room fell silent. Ethan's heart raced. Who was Lila? What had his father done? He could see the panic wash over Robert's face. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was the unraveling of a carefully constructed facade. Robert struggled to maintain his composure, but it was clear that the truth was too much to bear. "This is not the time or place, Rebecca," he said, his voice trembling. But she wouldn't let it go. It became apparent that Rebecca was not only aware of Robert's past, but had a plan that intertwined with it. As tensions mounted, the revelation shook the very foundations of their family. In the days that followed, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He noticed Rebecca's glances, how she seemed to follow him with her eyes whenever he was near, and how Mary was suddenly less available to him. Ethan decided to take matters into his own hands. He delved deeper into Rebecca's past, researching online, scouring through old news articles, and talking to neighbors who might have known her. What he uncovered was shocking. Rebecca had been involved in a series of questionable activities linked to fraud, and even worse. But just when he thought he could confront her with evidence, something else happened. One evening, Mary disappeared. After a long day of cleaning and organizing the household, she simply vanished. The atmosphere in the house thickened with dread. Robert, worried and frantic, reported her missing. But Ethan knew better. He could feel in his bones that Rebecca had something to do with it. As the police conducted their investigation, Ethan took it upon himself to search the house for any clue that could lead him to Mary. In his search, he stumbled upon a hidden compartment in the library. Inside were photos of Mary, along with cryptic notes. His stomach churned as he read them, notes about her routines, her strengths, and her weaknesses. Ethan's heart sank as he realized the truth. Rebecca was not only manipulating his father, but had a sinister plan in place to eliminate anyone who stood in her way. But what was her end game? Gathering his courage, Ethan decided he couldn't stay quiet any longer. He approached his father, who was buried in worry, trying to keep it all together. "Dad, we need to talk. I know something's wrong with Rebecca," he urged. But Robert brushed him off, too caught up in his own turmoil to see the signs. "Ethan, I'm sure everything is fine. It's just a misunderstanding," he said, frustration evident in his voice. Desperate for someone to listen, Ethan turned to his friends at school. He confided in them about his suspicions and Mary's disappearance. They listened, their expressions turning serious as he shared his findings about Rebecca. Together, they hatched a plan to investigate further. They decided to set up surveillance, capturing any suspicious activities at the Reed household. As they gathered evidence, Ethan felt a growing sense of urgency. Every moment spent in that house felt like a ticking time bomb. One night, they witnessed something horrifying, a confrontation between Robert and Rebecca that spiraled out of control. Rebecca had grown increasingly frustrated with Robert's lack of support and had reached her breaking point. You could hear her shouting from outside as the friends hid in the shadows. "You think you can leave me out of this? You think I won't do whatever it takes to keep my life intact?" She was furious, her words laced with a sense of menace that chilled Ethan to the bone. Suddenly, in a fit of rage, she threw a glass at the wall, the sound shattering the silence of the night. Robert staggered back, fear written across his face. At that moment, Ethan realized just how dangerous Rebecca had become. Feeling a rush of adrenaline, Ethan knew he had to act fast. He called the police, explaining everything he could. They assured him they would investigate, but warned him not to confront Rebecca directly. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Ethan tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy at school, but the weight of his fears pressed down on him like a heavy cloak. Every time he heard a car in the driveway or footsteps in the hallway, his heart raced. And then the unthinkable happened. One night, after coming home from school, Ethan found his father in a panic, searching for Rebecca. She had vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but chaos and confusion. That's when Ethan realized that Rebecca's plan had gone into motion. He could feel it in his bones. She was not just a stepmother trying to fit into a family, she was a predator, and they were her prey. Desperate to uncover the truth, Ethan returned to the attic, determined to find any clue that could lead him to Rebecca and help them understand what she was truly capable of. It was there that he stumbled upon an old trunk filled with documents, marriage certificates, divorce papers, and various aliases that Rebecca had used over the years. His heart raced as he pieced together the dark history of the woman he once called a stepmother. Each document painted a picture of a woman who had moved through life, leaving destruction in her wake. But the trunk held one more chilling surprise. Tucked beneath the papers was a diary, Rebecca's diary. Ethan hesitated, but knew he needed to read it to find answers. As he flipped through the pages, horror washed over him. The entries were filled with rage, plans for revenge, and a deep-seated hatred for anyone who had wronged her. One entry caught his eye in particular. It detailed a plot to eliminate Robert, claiming he was the source of all her problems. Rebecca saw herself as a victim, but in reality, she was the architect of her own destruction. As the sun set, Ethan heard a noise from downstairs. He felt a surge of fear, knowing he couldn't stay hidden any longer. Gathering all the courage he could muster, he crept down the stairs, each step echoing in the stillness. What he found made his blood run cold. There, in the dim light of the living room, stood Rebecca, a twisted smile on her face. "I've been waiting for you, Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with malice. He stood frozen, realizing she had discovered his secret investigation. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, his voice shaky yet defiant. "What do I want? To protect my family, of course," she replied, her expression shifting to something more sinister. "You should have kept your nose out of things that don't concern you, dear boy." In that moment, Ethan knew he was in grave danger. He turned and ran, but not before hearing her shriek behind him. "You can't run from the truth, Ethan. This is my family now." Panicking, Ethan darted out of the house, the cool night air hitting him like a slap. He raced to a neighbor's house, frantically knocking on the door, begging for help. He explained everything: the letters, Mary's disappearance, Rebecca's true nature. The neighbor, a kind elderly woman, called the police while Ethan waited anxiously, heart pounding, fear coursing through his veins. When the officers arrived, he felt a sense of relief, but he also knew that it wasn't over. They approached the Reed household, cautiously making their way inside, Ethan trailing closely behind. As they entered, they found the living room in disarray, evidence of the confrontation still lingering in the air. But Rebecca was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only shadows of the chaos she had caused. The officers searched the house, but their efforts proved fruitless. All they found was a note left on the dining table, a twisted farewell from Rebecca, filled with her delusions of grandeur and claims of innocence. Ethan felt the weight of despair as they informed him they had to let it go for the night. But he wasn't ready to give up. With Mary missing and Rebecca on the loose, Ethan knew he couldn't rest until he found the truth. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation dragged on. Robert was devastated, grappling with the loss of both his wife and his maid. He couldn't comprehend the depth of betrayal that had taken place under his roof. Ethan took it upon himself to dig deeper, connecting with local authorities and uncovering more about Rebecca's past. He learned of her connections to a series of crimes, including fraud and manipulation, leading to a growing list of victims. Finally, after relentless searching and gathering evidence, they caught a break. An old friend of Rebecca's came forward, revealing that she had been spotted in a neighboring town. The police acted quickly, launching a manhunt to apprehend her before she could disappear again. With a sense of hope reignited, Ethan joined the police as they set out to locate Rebecca. The search took them to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town where she had been living under an alias. When they arrived, Ethan's heart raced with both excitement and fear. As the police stormed the motel room, Ethan waited outside, knowing this was the moment they had been waiting for. He could only hope they would bring her to justice. The door burst open, and they emerged with Rebecca in handcuffs, a defiant expression on her face. "You think you've won, Ethan," she spat, her eyes wild with rage. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Seeing her finally apprehended brought Ethan a sense of relief. The nightmare was over, but the scars remained. He knew his family would never be the same, but he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. As the investigation continued, they discovered that Rebecca had been involved in a larger scheme, one that had ensnared countless families in its web of lies and deceit. It became clear that she was a master manipulator, using charm and cunning to gain trust before unleashing chaos. Eventually, the truth about Mary's disappearance was revealed. With Rebecca's arrest, they found her hidden away in a makeshift cellar, frightened but alive. The reunion was bittersweet, filled with relief and sorrow as they realized the depth of betrayal they had faced. In the aftermath, Robert sought therapy to heal from the emotional scars left by Rebecca's manipulation, while Ethan found solace in supporting Mary and helping his father rebuild their lives. While they moved on from the horrors they had experienced, the lessons learned would linger forever. The perfect family facade had shattered, exposing the darkness lurking beneath the surface. This story serves as a reminder that behind every smile there can be hidden pain. We must always be vigilant, for sometimes those we trust the most can lead us down a path of destruction. Thank you for joining us today as we explored the twisted tale of the Reed family, a story that illustrates the complexity of human relationships and the darkness that can dwell within.